everyone. Welcome to another episode. I'm so excited about this interview. I have been watching Alxander's YouTube channel now since he started it a year ago, and he is transmitting all the way from Oslo, Norway. So I'm just going to do a little introduction here. So this is what Alxander describes, how he describes himself on his YouTube channel. He is an independent philosopher, detransitioned male, free thinker, transhumanist, and anarchist. And his channel covers social and political commentary on detrans and trans issues, as well as diverse philosophical content. And he's currently writing a book on technological evolution. I can't wait to read that. And he just published an article that he's going to talk to us about. But welcome, Alxander.
Hello, warm welcome from the cold Norway.
Yes, and I'm here in cold Seattle right now. So, but I like it. It's like so cozy. We're in here working all day, and I like it. Maybe because of my Norwegian roots, and I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Everyone's like, "Oh, you can't wait to go back to California," because I live in LA as well. And I'm like, "No, I like this weather. I don't know about you."
I can relate to that. I'm not a big fan of hot weather, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like we had like freezing temperatures of -20 degrees Celsius degrees. I use Fahrenheit in US. I don't know exactly how that translates to Fahrenheit, but it was pretty freezing, and I'm sort of enjoying myself in those types of temperatures. So
Right. I did interview Buck Angel, and I follow
yeah.
a lot of the transsexuals, and such as Blair White and Shapeshifter and some other wonderful people, and Richie and different. Well, Richie's a detrans, but that then got followed down the rabbit hole into all these people that have detransitioned, and just as a caring for humans and children, and this is just such a fascinating subject that's exploded over the past, I don't know, couple of years, really. And now you've got great conversation going around it. So I would love my viewers to hear some of your story.
Yes, thank you, Marla. Actually, before I start, I might say I don't necessarily think it's a subject that I don't think it is something that exploded in the last couple of years. I just think there has been more awareness around it. People are talking about it
Yeah,
to a
I
much
think that's
higher
what I kind of
degree.
meant, is the subject kind of came into the forefront,
Yes,
right? It came out.
yes.
Huh?
But
Okay.
a lot of the concepts people are discussing today is something that trans activists have been talking about for more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
Stuff like birthing parents. We tend to think it's a very, very new concept, but that is something they've been discussing and talking about for a very, very long time, actually.
Well, that's interesting. And chest feeders and humans who have,
Yeah, yeah.
changing the dial name. But I had not seen any. And I think, gosh, when did I become aware of this? A couple of years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So
It was sort of like a closed community sort of thing, like a certain type of uh, language or even an inside joke. It's not a joke by any means, but something highly understood within the realms of that particular community. It didn't really found its footing outside of the community yet at that point, but it eventually started to leaking, mostly because trans activists somehow, gained more power, you could say, or at least influence. Maybe not power. I don't think power is the right way to call it, but influence definitely.
yeah,
At least in social media.
right. And influencing, I mean, to the extent that we had Dylan Mulvaney at the White House, and so
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it really has. And so when you were exploring that, I think there is it on Reddit or somewhere where they talk about it a lot, or there's different the closed communities where did you see that, or were you not was that not an influence for you?
Well, no, I'm talking more about real life scenarios, like a part of the conversations that have been had, like within a trans community. Even though I never really considered myself a part of trans community, even back when I was still living as a trans woman. I, I never actually considered myself a part of that community. I don't ever consider myself part of any community, to be honest.
Right.
But I have had my share of interactions with trans people and trans activists over the years.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just I would love for my viewers just to hear, they're probably wondering, what do you mean you were a trans woman? You know, you're
Mm.
such a handsome, articulate,
Oh,
just
thank you.
amazing young man. You're in your early 30s now, right?
Yes, I'm aging like a fine wine,
You
sort
are.
of.
You're just so cute. Yeah, you're just adorable.
Well, hopefully, I won't age like a milk in just a matter of a year or two in the near future. That you never know what might
Now
happen.
because you had thought that because of what you went through, that you didn't age much. You look a lot younger than you are.
Yeah, yeah, and I get it a lot, and estrogen definitely has that effect on males who take it. Especially if you start taking estrogen at a young age, and I happened to start taking estrogen when I was 19, and I was on estrogen for approximately 2.5 years, and you know a lot of its effects can be reversed,
Mhm.
right? Like you end up gaining more masculine features if you stop taking estrogen, but there are some effects to that are gonna be always with you, and even after, well, how it's been 10 years almost since I stopped taking estrogen, and things like how your fat redistributes are still highly influenced by estrogen, or how young I look. Like I don't look my age. I mean, I think um, if I was still living as a trans woman, I would probably be considered my age. But for a male standard, I am not. And even things like lack of facial hair can definitely contribute to that as well.
Right. And then when you stopped, what was there anything that you noticed that was negative, or did it pretty much you just started reversing back, or?
Um, well, first I have to ask you, what do you mean by negative? Do you mean negative physical effects of
Yeah.
stopping taking estrogen? Oh,
Yeah. Well, maybe
well,
emotional. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
mm, I've observed more of the negative emotional effects of being an estrogen rather than being off estrogen. Things like being very, well, not just emotional, but like, how should I call it? I felt very emotionally vulnerable in a way. Like absolutely everything was affecting me to a higher degree than ever before, and I'm a pretty sensitive person to begin with, and all of that just multiplied. And estrogen wasn't necessarily a big fan of that, but also things like general confusion and brain fog, memory problems that I've developed while being on estrogen. And when I went off estrogen, it suddenly felt like I was able to think again. Like my brain was back.
uh,
It was operating properly all over again after a while. And there are people who I have told this to that suggested Well, of course, it's because men are more intelligent than women. It's a statement I absolutely disagree with. I don't. There is really no connection between intelligence and sex,
Mhm.
but it's not natural for male brains to have this level of estrogen, and my body will always be male, and it's aware of that there's an abnormality happening there, like
Yeah.
something is not as it's supposed to be, and
Well,
there will be consequences of that.
and so for the viewers, you did go through surgery.
Yes, I had. Well, it's commonly referred to as bottom surgery. It's this thing called sex reassignment surgery, even though, or sometimes even commonly known as sex change. Even though I think it's a very misleading name, because you can't change your sex, and that is not what is happening during surgery. It's just an aesthetical change to a particular region of your body to resemble that of a more feminine body. Like you're feminizing yourself in the process, but not necessarily turning yourself into the opposite sex.
Right. Yeah.
That's the way I see it, at least.
Well, Buck Angel talks a lot about that. He said he's for the viewers who don't know
Mm.
who he is, he's a transsexual female to male, and he's
Yes, I
61.
was on Buck Angel's channel actually. So
I know, I saw that. It was great. And he talks about how he didn't doesn't he goes, I didn't change my sex, but I walk the world as a man. I want people to see me as a man. I want to live as a man, but I'm not a man. Um, and your story's particularly important because you admit, you say this was a mistake that I did. Um, and you don't want children to be rushing into something like that, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. I mean, I don't think anyone should be rushing towards making a decision that will affect the rest of your life. But especially when it comes to kids, like there is a big difference between how an adult brain works and how a developing brain works, right? And a developing brain, a big advantage with having that is that you're really good at absorbing new information. Um, a lot of the time, we find it harder to new things or even new languages as we age. We might be thinking that um, our brains are deteriorating, but that's not necessarily true. The way I see it is that the way brain operates just switches at a certain age, and it's no longer designed to absorb the information because you have already acquired enough information along the years that is necessary for your survival and for your function in the world and in society. And now, what your brain is designed for is to use that acquired information.
Mhm.
So, an adult brain is much more efficient at making reasonable decisions. It's more responsible, and that is one of the reasons why teenagers do a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Find themselves in really stupid situations, and as an adult you might be thinking, how can someone be this stupid? How
Yeah.
could I be so stupid, right? And that's a very common way of seeing it. But a young mind is very vulnerable to that, and much more vulnerable to making mistakes. In some way, we also learn from mistakes. But even though I certainly learned from mine, but part of me wishes it never happened.
Yeah. And you were how old when you did do the surgery?
I was 21.
And I did see you talk about an interview where you said that actually when you were being wheeled in to do the surgery, you felt I don't want to do it, but you wanted to be right because you had said to your
Mm,
parents or your mother or something, no, this is what I want to do. And it was almost a defiant kind of thing, and you went ahead with it. And yeah, I can relate.
yeah,
I can relate to that, doing things that you
yeah,
know.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I don't ever think it's a good idea to tell your kids, oh, it's just a phase,
Mm.
because the rebellious nature of a young person is going to feel like, I have to prove my parents wrong. I'm in the right here, so I have to show them that it is not just a phase, and that can lead someone to take pretty drastic measures, such as, well, surgery that is going to inflict chronic changes in your body that are going to be with you for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yeah. It's not, you
And
can't.
I'm at peace with myself now, where I am, but it was a long and hard journey to even get here.
Yeah. I'm so
Mm.
happy that you've come to this place and right now. So you just wrote an article that you uploaded that's you're pretty excited about. You want to share about that?
Yes, yes. Actually, I wrote an article on why online pornographic content should be age restricted, and why I think this type of content is damaging to young people, and why it affects everything from expectations towards sex and towards their partner. It affects their own body image and self-esteem, their creativity, ability to develop your own fantasies and desires, like sexual fantasies. It sort of enforces scenarios in your brain. It doesn't allow your brain to arouse itself. Instead, it becomes reliant on well, pornographic material in front of you in order to stimulate itself. And I think I don't think it's healthy for, especially for young individuals whose brain are still developing.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty long read. um I think it's 4,000 words, something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But yeah, if you're interested in the subject, maybe worth reading. It feels weird when I'm saying it. It's worth reading. Well, I wrote it, so I think it's
Well,
worth reading. But hopefully, other people think so too.
yeah. Well, I'll put a link in the description box to it, you
Thank
know.
you.
So what brought, is that really available to younger people? Is that something you're seeing that's an issue? That it must be if you're writing about it.
Well, so most porn sites have, at least the most respectable ones, have this window popping up where you have to say, I confirm that I am either 18 or of legal age in my country. Um, but it doesn't really check how old you actually are,
Right.
right? It's just there to satisfy certain authorities from stopping those sites from functioning. So it doesn't exist to protect the minor. It exists to protect the site itself and its owners.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and whether it's the issue that porn is so easily available to young people, if that is an issue in of itself, not necessarily. It's when combined with the negative effects it has on young people. I think I think it can cause more anxiety when actually engaging in sexual acts than if young people were not exposed to this type of content.
And what about the book that you're working on? Tell us about that.
Yes, I'm writing a book on evolution of technology in a both like cultural and metaphysical context. It's it relates a lot to cosmic evolution, so I connect it to something much higher that is going on with the whole cosmic evolution, and generally what exactly is technology, how does the new development of technology affects all of us, society, and our lives, and where should we be moving forward, and whether it is technological development in and of itself that is deterministic and determined to become this force of enslaving humanity, or moving towards singularity, or if this development is something within our control, within yeah, our hands, if we can shape it. In what way has technology improved lives, first and foremost, since especially since industrial revolution?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of fear around it. People are afraid like that AI will take their jobs and there won't and some and I think
Mm.
there'll be new ones created, but off here in the States you go in a supermarket now and there's like one person working behind a checkout, everything else is self-checking. You know, we've seen less and less
Yeah.
people manning things that they used to do, and now they're making those self-driving cars, you know, which aren't a lot of them on the road, but there are some. So it's like, well, will that take
Mm.
out the Uber drivers and the taxi drivers? And so it's kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a really, really big shift. And I think before things get better, before new jobs get created, a lot of those already existing jobs and the sort of skills people have been developing, suddenly people might be finding that, oh, there is no need for those skills anymore,
Yeah.
right? And that's a terrifying thought right there. And in a way, I also think that eventually this will allow people to focus on other things than manual labor, which will indeed stimulate sorry further intellectual and technological development, where more people are putting their minds into it. But that will also require the development of something we, at least in transhumanist circles, are calling super intelligence.
So what
And
is a
that is
transhumanist? What is for people who's maybe what is a transhumanist and what is a transhumanist circle that you're all you
mm,
transhumanists are
so
talking about? Yeah.
So I think the best way to explain what transhumanism is that, imagine the ways in which technology is improving your body. For example, like your glasses are improving your sight. Hearing aids can improve your hearing, right? But now imagine that instead of external measures, technology being used externally, we are applying technology internally. Anything from gene technology to actual replacement of human organs with mechanical ones, and just enhancing our abilities through technological means, whether those are physical abilities or mental abilities. And a lot of people consider it very, very controversial to begin with, but almost any technological progress has always been facing a lot of different sort of controversy throughout history. And we should be asking ourselves whether there is actually some merit to those worries, or if it's what has been happening throughout history whenever something new has been introduced. And there was always skepticism to any new development, and sometimes for right reasons. I don't think we should be ignoring those more conservative of skeptical voices. I'm very techno progressive myself, but I think in order to establish the best development possible that actually benefits humanity and the earth and other animals, is to actually listen to those more conservative voices in order to know what exactly can go wrong and how we can avoid that, so we can move forward in the best way possible.
Yeah,
It's sort
well,
of a push pull relationship between progressive and liberal, and I think that translates also really well to politics as well, because that's the best way for society to move forward, to have this exchange of ideas.
so what do you think about those chips they put in the hand? I think in Sweden they do it where you just
Mm.
wave to get in place. See, I don't want to do that.
See, that is actually one thing I don't think is necessary. I don't think it is something that improves humanity necessarily. If there is a technological mean, a technological chip that can improve how much information your brain is being able to store, how fast it is being able to learn, I see it as beneficial. Um, having a little chip that you can pay for your groceries with, that's not a beneficial factor. That's just a gimmick. And one thing that I think is really, really important to address before we even attempt such transhumanist measure is to make sure what is the source of the technology you are putting inside your body.
Mhm.
And when we have people in authorities in places of power who can use that technology to control you, that becomes an issue. And
Yeah.
that is the issue we need to address first before we even move forward to more it's more futuristic implementing of technology, you could say.
That would be my fear is why are they, wanting to do this? That's a big
Yeah, and that, I think that's one of the most reasonable fears.
yeah.
Another possible fear is that this will actually have a very, very negative effect on human body and human health. That's why I think we should be moving. We should be moving forward. I mean, that's the very nature of human. We always want to transcend our own existence, and we have been transcending ourselves in nature ever since prehistoric days, really. That's one of the main characteristics of humanity, that we always want to move forward, we always want to progress. But we also need to be moving a bit more cautiously, especially now when things are changing at an alarmingly high rate and everything is accelerating.
There's the birth rates are really going down. Like we think there's too many people on the planet, but then like Elon Musk talks about, no, there's actually because certain countries are having such a low birth rate. And for instance, Japan is one of those. And I was reading in
Yes,
also Korea that the women in
China too, actually.
China, yes, and the Japanese are very into dolls that are they look like a real person as a girlfriend.
Mm.
Have you looked into that, which is kind of
Yeah.
fascinating? And then the
Yeah.
AI girlfriends, the AI on, they'll really marrying their
Mhm.
AI. So that's could really shift. Well, China, they've got too many women because they were only allowing one child.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so now the women have the
Well,
pick, like they can pick one,
exactly.
right? And so it's a real imbalance. Yeah.
Exactly, and there's another phenomenon that is happening, specifically in China, and China is very different from Japan in that aspect. Is that a lot of Chinese young people are saying they don't want to have kids because they are sick of the government, of the regime, of CCP, and some are saying we are the last generations. Will not expose new generations to that same pile of shit, really.
Yeah.
And that is something interesting when people can have that power, within their grasp to say like, no, no more. Like
Mhm.
you have no power over people when there are no people you can rule. And well, I think there's something poetic about it in a way, but I used to flirt with anti-natalist ideas for many, many years. And just to explain very quickly, what is anti-natalism? It's the general attitude towards birth and creating more life as ethically negative. Um, in the sense that it is unethical to bring new life on this earth, and some people might think it's because of uncertainty of future, but more extreme takes on antinatalism are that it's unethical to create life no matter how well we are doing, how well the planet is doing, mostly because you do not have someone's consent to bring them to this life, and it is impossible to ask a non-existent person for their consent. So that's very interesting, and I think there's some merit to that. But at the same time, it's very hard to achieve that because you can't convince every single person on the planet that they will stop having kids. You can convince some. Maybe you can even convince a lot. Maybe you can
Oh,
convince most of them, but
stop.
not everyone. Some people will still be having kids. And the worst thing that can happen is when very few people are having kids.
Yeah.
That's much worse than if no one has kids,
Yeah.
because now you end up with a mostly elderly population and no young people to stimulate the economy, no young people to support the elderly, and that is actually perhaps equally as tragic. No, I would say that is more tragic than actual extinction of a species.
Well, that's what's
And
happening.
and
That's
I'm not like super negative towards the extinction of humanity because we have contributed to extinction of a lot of other species on this planet. So I think if that was to happen to humans, call it karma if you want to. There is actually another very fascinating phenomenon in Japan, and those are the so-called relationships with hostesses.
oh, okay.
You
Like
have heard of those?
yeah, yeah. Like the geisha girls or the is that what you mean? Hostesses?
Yeah, it's those are basically designated bars or clubs
Mhm.
where you can go and well, they're either hosts or hostesses. Hosts are like male versions of that, and you can go to that place and have drinks with the member of the opposite sex,
Mhm.
and yeah, just talk, drink, maybe eat, have a good time. But the thing is, those are not like strangers you meet or not someone you actually date. Those are people who are working there to
Yep.
sort of provide it stimulation, a simulation of a date. It's not
Yeah.
a real date any means, but it may feel like it. That's what they're being paid for. And is it really that different from some of the things people are doing here in the West, such as OnlyFans,
Yeah.
when people are paying someone to? I don't know exactly how that works. Like, there are many things online. Like even if you go on YouTube and you have there's things like. mm There's people like let's say it's a woman who talks to you like she's your girlfriend if you're a male or watching this sort of content, or a lesbian woman for that matter, and and it sort of like simulates your relationship, like someone talking to you like, oh, you're came home from work and she's talking to you asking you how you are, she's very loving and all of that, but it's just a YouTube video, but it stimulates that. And some people, it's not like they consume that content because they can't get an actual partner. They actually consume that type of content because they prefer that.
Mhm.
Why? Well, could be many reasons for that. I think one of such reasons is the fact that it's easily available and it doesn't require any commitment,
Yeah, and
really.
there's no
You know,
arguments. There's no,
exactly.
yeah, it's
Exactly. It's an easy way out. It's
yeah,
such an easy solution.
yeah.
Human relationships are hard, and I think we are becoming accustomed to things just not being complicated, and we are becoming more and more self-centered, and feel like there's not necessarily room for another individual in our lives. So we rather have this sort of illusion of a relationship than an actual relationship.
Mhm. And when you're bringing up like there may be an extinction of humanity or something, and I'm very you might not know much about me, but I'm very we say woo woo, very, I mean, I'm into aliens and Bigfoot and
Hmm.
all the magic, and I'm an energy healer, and I working on mediumship as well as I'm a own a business. But so
Mm.
I go real deep on a lot of subjects, and so as what we would say, the woo-woos like me, well, we've lived many lives, and we've been on other planet because Earth has not always existed, and so we've been on other planets, we've been other things, we will always exist, energy cannot be created or destroyed, so we will go on. So
Thermodynamics.
one day the Earth's going to not be here anyway, so there won't be humans. So if humans are extinct, I mean, the people that died anyway, it doesn't matter. What's it really going to matter, right? To what? In my opinion, it's like, well, who cares if humans are extinct. We're all only here for a certain amount of time in this body, and then we're out, maybe coming back, but does it matter? So what do you feel about that?
Um, well,
But
first of all, I like takes like that because I like it when people being honest about what they think and just don't concern themselves with social standards or how weird it is. That's why I also think that conspiracy theorists can be very interesting people to talk to, right? But one thing you mentioned about how we are here only temporarily. Well, if you think about it, the life is a sort of an anomaly because you spend much more time not existing than you spend existing. Even though, from your own perspective, existing is all you ever experience, that is all you ever know, from your own perspective, you're sort of always alive because it is impossible to experience anything else. But in a cosmic sense, it's just a very tiny anomaly just happening there. But oh, you exist here, and oh, suddenly you don't for the rest of existence of the cosmos, really. But you know what? I also think that consciousness is something that is circulating. In a way, I guess you could say I believe in reincarnation, but not necessarily in the sense that you're the same person. But I think that consciousness circulates just like matter and energy. Like right, like the atoms that are in my body, those atoms will become part of something else. The energy that is circulating through my body is going out somewhere and it is being used for a different purpose, right? It's a constant flow of energy. Human um, energy density is actually pretty high. We have some of the highest energy density here on this planet. I think birds are some of the animals that actually have a higher energy density flow than humans, at least when flying. That's very fascinating. Um, and really think that consciousness is sort of a third substance next to matter and energy. And just like matter and energy, consciousness is flowing. So the aspects of my consciousness that exists in me right now will exist in some other being, maybe human or not, eventually at some point. I mean, there's a reason why some personality traits are always circulating in humanity, and you see them in all those humans because those are those same elements, really.
yeah, coming back into another life to work out some stuff you didn't work on and
Well,
travel.
not necessarily. At least that is not something I believe. I don't think there's like, oh, you haven't finished something, so you have to do that. I think it's just a circulating substance, and that's all there is to it. I don't.
So when you talk about,
You can if you want to, you can look for a deeper meaning there, but I think it's just simple metaphysics, really. At
so
least that's the way I see
when you
things.
say different person, the same personality traits that we find, where you uh thinking about on that, where that's coming from.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain limit to how many personality traits humanity can have, right? Um, and there's a good reason for that because if something exists outside of that norm, we consider that very eccentric. But even those eccentric traits, sorry, can have certain limits, and a lot of the time when it's really far beyond that norm, we might even consider it a mental illness of sorts because it doesn't conform to that. So, well, in a way, isn't a person with, let's say, schizophrenia just a very rare soul in a way?
There is thought on that in many cases. Many of the thinking they're schizophrenic and talking, you'll see them talking like to somebody that's supposedly not there, but they could just really have a pineal gland, the third eye, the pineal
Mm.
gland just blown open from whatever, from drugs or from just it is. And so they are actually are communicating with other beings that we can't see. And so often they're just very open psychically. They're very open spiritually, and we call it mental illness. And so in very often, I think that that's the case, could be the case. And then we try to medicate them so they don't see it. But there's things all around us. We can't see at another frequency. We're very low dense frequency.
Mm.
So there's other dimensions, which has been proven scientifically, and there's beings all around us. They're just at such a high frequency, angels and guides and deceased loved ones and also ETs and all of that stuff. And I like to even dive into, where in the fairy tales, there's talk about fairies and gnomes and all of these unicorns and stuff. And I really believe that these are living on another dimension. And these people that originally wrote about them or drew them really saw them, could have been in a dream state or a meditations, or just, saw those things. So that's where I go. I just look at it, you're like, yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I don't agree with you necessarily. I don't see things the same way, but I appreciate your honesty and that you're so genuine about your belief there. That is something I can respect, even though that's not necessarily my own
Right.
worldview.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know. It's
but yeah,
interesting.
I'm also open-minded. I mean, is
Yeah.
there a possibility that you're right about absolutely everything you said there? Yes. And I'm not going to disregard such possibility. I just think that in terms of likelihood, I doubt it. But
And then, I've done a lot of plant medicine too, plant medicine journeys, the
mm,
psilocybin mushroom. Some people do ayahuasca, which will take you through the third eye and where you can see a lot of stuff. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that is actually something that has helped quite a lot of individuals dealing
Oh,
with their own
yeah,
mental health, and
it does.
anxiety, and depression. So,
It's fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
gosh, thank you for spending all this time with me, and what fascinating conversation.
No
And
problem. No problem.
so
It's
what's
very
your
interesting.
Yeah, so everybody, you can find Alexander's links below. He'll send me the link to his article, and I'll put his interview with Buck Angel there and his channel. And what are your channel's really great. You talk about a lot of fascinating subjects. What's your goal now going forward to focus on, or what are you trying to get out there for people, or,
Mm. Well, I think moving forward, my channel will focus bu- both on the trans and gender discourse, but also on philosophical and otherwise political content, and some all sorts of subjects that interest me. Might touch upon philosophy, and of course, I'm working on music as well. So at, at some point this year, I was a single of sorts, the first
oh,
track from an upcoming album. I've been working on this song, and just in the middle of it, just a vocal melody came to my head, and I started sort of singing while playing the guitar on that part. I was
mhm.
like, hey, you know what? This is actually working. Like, this is the first time I've done something like that. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I've heard you talk about you liking the kind of heavy metal or heavy rock when you were growing up, or that was kind of your
Hmm.
favorite, right? Wasn't it? Or,
I'm into a lot of different genres. Really, I like a lot of progressive rock from the '70s, but also some progressive metal. I
Mhm.
like a lot of classical rock. I like a lot of jazz music. I like some electronic and ambient and hip hop. I love classical music as well, and basically almost any genre I think has something good to offer. I don't think there is such a thing as a bad genre. I think there are just some songs and artists I might not necessarily like, but I don't think I actually dislike any particular genre of music. And I also love listening to music in foreign language as well, from music from foreign countries.
I do too. I love that. When I was learning French, I was listening to, I got so much French music and I'd sing along with it and I'd look at the words in the CD to, be able to pronounce and all of that. I love that.
Well, actually, one of my favorite artists is French. So
Who's that?
Edith Piaf.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Quand
I
il
love
me
her.
prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose.
I love her. I love her.
I love that song. And see, I can't sing, but that one I just pretend I can. All right. So, so thank you so much, Alexander. And you guys, so go follow his
Thanks.
channel. And I'd love to
Thank you.
hear what you guys think in the comments. Now, are you in Alexander's camp or mine about the fairies and the unicorns and the other dimensions? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it so we can see what people are thinking. Now, am I a little cuckoo or is he too pragmatic or scientific? I want to know what you think. All right. Thanks, everybody.